All right.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Story Studio podcast. Welcome to another State of the Industry series. And, well, I guess it wouldn't be another series, another entry in the State of the Industry series. And this is super fun. This is super fun because not only do we get a perspective on the state of the industry from somebody and an organization who would know, but also this our guest today is a longtime friend of ours, Mark Leslie Lefevre, and used to be Mark from Kobo. No longer Mark from Kobo, now Mark from Draft2Digital.
Does that follow you everywhere?
Mark2Digital is my new name. If you can.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, okay.
I like that a lot.
That way you don't ever have to say Lefevre.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Mark2Digital. And what I like about it is that you're in the same. It's like the Venn diagram circle is one level out, right? Because it used to be we would talk to you about Kobo, and now we can talk to you about Kobo, but also Apple and everywhere else, Overdrive and everybody, because Draft2Digital is an aggregator and distributes to lots of different places, and it also simplifies our lives because now we can just do everything through Draft2Digital and not worry necessarily about needing to go direct, which is what we had to do to talk to you before.
Right.
So welcome to the show, Mark. You've been on before, but welcome in your new capacity, and it is great to see you again, my friend.
It's great to see you guys.
Yeah, Mark was OG, like one of our very, very first, I don't want to say 10 shows, but 20 shows. Like he emailed us and he said,
"Oh my God, you're going to give away my age."
He said, I've been listening to
He was this
guys.
young, scrappy kid at the time selling comic books on the playground.
Hair out to here. It was funny because he said in the email, I listened to your show and I swear there's no way that me, Johnny, or Dave believed him. Like, there's no way you're actually listening to this nonsense. That's what people say. I'm a fan of your show. And he comes on and he's like 5 minutes in, he's busting on Dave, and we're like, whoa, you know things. By the way, the reason that Dave is not here for today's episode is because we're recording this at 3 o'clock. We recorded another episode at 12 o'clock, and that's too much of an overlap for Dave. He's either staying up for one or waking up early.
Yeah, I thought he might be awake by this time in the day as opposed to early. I'm surprised.
Well, he had to stay up for the podcast.
He stayed up for the podcast, but
he stayed up from the previous night of. Oh my God, the poor guy.
Yeah, normally
we don't see it that way.
Normally, saying make yourself available between noon and 3 in the afternoon it's
a reasonable ask
for most people, right?
But Johnny was super, super excited that you were coming on. He went right when we were signing off. He says, "Oh, Mark, it's going to be so much fun." So it does feel like a nice homecoming.
It is like a fun reunion, isn't it?
It really is. And I think we've gone through a lot of changes. The industry's gone through a lot of changes. Your job has gone through a lot of changes. So there's a lot to catch up on. And before we start, I would just like to point out that Marie in the chat got the room reference. So that's awesome. All right. Well, okay, so let's just talk first about the scope, because things have changed a lot. And when we first...
Right, some authors are like, wait, there's somewhere other than Amazon?
I've heard.
Right, and you're kind of representing...
It's true, all of it. That's my best Han Solo.
I like it. In your first iteration, the first many times that we met you on the show in person, you were always a really tremendous voice it was an alternative voice. Now, it did represent Kobo, but within that, it was always like Kobo almost became the symbol for the other voice, the author person, where you could have this one-on-one touch. And everybody knew that wasn't really Kobo, it was Mark. Like that was very much the industry. Everyone knew that. But now
they gave me a lot of autonomy, so I actually I appreciated that. That actually allowed me to do that and allowed to create that culture with Kobo Writing Life.
Yes, because even though you may not have been able to drop an F-bomb, you were able to be yourself for the most part and really engage in conversations. You never felt like you were a spokesperson. Well, actually, you did. You always felt like you were a spokesperson, but you felt more like you were a spokesperson for the industry and for authors and not just for Kobo. And there was one ask. You would say, hey, do you mind like putting your stuff in your dashboard, because that's like how I can support my job. But other than that, you always gave us beautifully straight answers. Do this, do this. Oh, I would not suggest that for this title. That's not best for you. And you never fronted like Kobo was the response and it was ever going to compete with Amazon. It was, how can we help you, given your criteria, do the best with your catalog? And that was always so refreshing. And I know that seeing you go from what you did and bringing that ethic to Kobo to a wider spectrum with, hey, now it's Amazon and everything else, and I can be a representative of everything else. Man, I feel like we as indie authors really won with that migration. So I know you probably don't want to talk about dirty details, but like, what was that like for the transition, and how has it been in the, is it 2 or 3 years? It's been a while.
It's 2018 to 20. Yeah, so I left Kobo at the end of 2017. I believe it was probably January or late 2017. I think I left in November. And
I saw you in November.
It took a couple months to figure out what I wanted to do. And the goal was, oh my God, I can finally be a full-time writer. I've dreamed of this my whole life. But I wanted to keep consulting because I wanted to still engage with authors, because I did love that part of my job. So I created the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast, which I rolled out in January of 2018. It's a weekly podcast. I was working on episode 145 earlier today. And I wanted to maintain my non-corporate life. I wanted to be able to advise authors openly about their goals and dreams. And again, and I have worked with hundreds of clients directly, whether they're exclusive to Amazon or not, whatever their goals and wishes are, I want to help them be successful, however their path is. Even help authors who are looking for traditional publishing deals. Well, how can I help them navigate the waters and not fall prey to the sharks? Because there's sharks everywhere, as you guys know. And I was at Novelists Inc. because I was still going to the conferences as an independent consultant. And I was at Novelists Inc. and I was talking to the CEO, Chris Austin. We were actually at Mark Dawson's open bar party the one night, and we just started talking, and I loved the guys from Draft2Digital. I actually met them at NINC a few years earlier. Hugh Howey had introduced me to them, and actually I didn't like them then because they broke Kobo Writing Life. They had developed a tool that was actually using the front end of Kobo, so D2D actually broke KWL. So I remember not actually liking them very much. But then I got to know them and realized what I loved about them was they had that approach. They had that sort of open approach, meaning there's no one right way of doing things. We're just going to give you some tools and help you. And if we can make money helping you, great. If not, we've helped you. And so I negotiated with Chris to join the D2D team, but I wanted to not be a full corporate guy. So I am technically a part-time employee. I work 20 hours a week for D2D, but I am, because I'm Canadian, I'm in the Draft2Digital Canadian office in Waterloo, Ontario. But it's also my Stark Publishing, that brand, my imprint, my company. It's also that office too. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to work with great guys building really cool stuff, because my role, technical role is director of business development, meaning I get to work with our partners. I get to work with some of our retailers, some of our libraries, some of the other partners and people that we want to engage with to build really cool stuff for authors. So I think, like you said, I loved Kobo, and I still love the people at Kobo. They're great folks, but I was limited. And Liz, my partner, said this to me. It was shortly before I decided it was time to leave Kobo. I was talking to an author who was traditionally published, and he was looking to get into indie publishing. And he pulled me aside after this one event and said, I'd like to get your advice. And I kept coming back, well, here's what Kobo can do for you. Here's what we can do, Kobo. And Liz pulled me inside and said, she doesn't want Kobo, or he doesn't want Kobo. He wants you. He wants you to help him with the things you know about the book industry, because I've been in it since '92. And I realized, while I love Kobo, and I still do, I was limiting my perspective to one retailer. I was doing the antithesis of what I was trying not to do. It was just everyone focusing on Amazon all the time, right? So that was almost the same thing. So ironically, when I moved away from Kobo, that was part of the wide strategy. But then getting the opportunity to work with Draft2Digital allowed me further insights into being able to build stuff, but also like that Venn diagram, it expanded me. It expanded my horizon. So now, you know, I wrote the book Killing It on Kobo shortly after leaving Kobo, because, well, now that I'm not there, maybe I couldn't benefit from it while I was there. But now I want to put all the things that I know that were public that I could share in a book that was okay to share. And that was great, because people still find benefit in it. But now I can help them on Apple and Nook and other platforms. Even, you know, Google Play, I'm still learning strategies for how to use Google Play, even though Draft2Digital doesn't distribute there, because I think part of my role is to help authors be successful in as many places as they can be.
What percentage of your time would you say you're spending kind of future casting and looking at where things are going versus where they are?
I'm spending a lot of my time in the future. So the benefit and
it gets
joy,
better,
It's
right?
better there.
yeah, the future's way better. The COVID has been, you know, there's a vaccine. No,
Is Dave happy?
Dave is not quite happy, but there is a light at the end.
Oh,
of the
that's all I
tunnel.
want. That's great. That's
Just a light at the end of the tunnel. No,
all
I
we
think,
need for Dave.
but I think part of my job is Draft2Digital business director of business development, is I get to look at the things, right? Which is what I got to do at Kobo Writing Life, is, let's build this for authors because they could use this. So I get to look at how things are working today, but how can things work with this new tool? Or and I love that part of the job. I don't like, you know, there's certain aspects that I don't like, because, you know, Dan and Kevin and I were just talking earlier today, and we were saying, yeah, it's funny, we tend to only focus on the things that are broken. So it's like, well, with Draft2Digital print, this is not working, and that's not working yet, and that's not working yet. But, you know, so authors will come back and go, wow, I just used it and it was awesome. And we're like, oh yeah, we forgot about all the things that work, because we don't focus on that very much.
Well, that's kind of natural.
Well, so let's talk about the industry. So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as you know, representative of Draft2Digital, I'm not even gonna. I know, like, I could ask you the question, but I can't do it with a straight face. So obviously, you'd be a proponent of wide rather than exclusive to Amazon. And I mean, before I ask you the question, which is obviously, you know, what's the state of that? How are things going? This has been something that's just been a constant thing with us, is because for us, and I know for me, like, I loathe the idea of being exclusive. I hate it so much. But a lot of the way that things are working right now is you kind of have to, at least to some degree, if you want to survive. At least that's the way that we're seeing. And I hate it. I hate it. Every time we do it, I feel like I'm selling my soul. But it's sort of the way that things have been. So tell us better news than that, Mark. How
Yeah, sure.
What do you think?
Well, let me be honest with you. I don't look down my nose at people who are exclusive to Amazon. Here's the other thing, because I work with a lot of authors one-on-one. And the reality is that if you only have one book, Amazon's the world's largest bookstore. And if you got to start somewhere, you may as well start with them, because it is the best bang for your buck to have a single account, right? So it is a good place to start. What I do advise against is the yo-yo, in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, because every single time you're doing a complete reset, and you're messing up, not only messing up your temperature and your ranking and all the things that you've accumulated, but you're also messing up any readers you may have accumulated when you pull out. So if anything, always start with the world's biggest bookstore and expand from there. And I'll be honest with you, when I was sitting in the Kobo office and KDP announced KDP Select, the exclusivity program that would get you into Kindle Unlimited, I published a book within 12 hours. I had something I was sitting on that I published into that program. And I've had at least one, if not, well, up to 8 titles in Kindle Unlimited or in KDP Select, and still do have a handful of titles in that program. And the reason why is I need to understand that program from the inside out, because it's what I would tell my son. Don't tell me you don't like this vegetable or this food until you've tried it. So I can tell you I don't like this vegetable because I've tried it and it gives me a bad taste in my mouth, but I have made some money off it. Not, you know, 7 figures or any of the crazy amounts of money, because I don't have a long science fiction series of 12 books where I'm going to get 10,000 page reads every week or something like that. That's actually going to bring me real money. But I do understand how the program works. I understand the benefits of the program. And I want to see authors successful no matter what's right for them. if that makes any sense. So that being said, the industry has dramatically changed and grown, as you guys know. Ebook reading, I know we keep thinking that we've hit the tipping point a long time ago. When you actually look at the statistics of people who actually read, most people still haven't read an ebook. Most people who read still read print books. This, like the Kindle was a tipping point, the iPad was a tipping point, and that moved a lot of diehard readers there, especially, as we know, early romance readers were just there because they could now afford to buy, because they were reading 2 books a day, right? So now it was a more achievable.
And they could also obscure their habit, which I think helped.
Yeah, exactly. Erotica especially is like, you can't tell what I'm reading, right?
Well,
so,
they could hide both what they're reading and how much they're reading.
Exactly. So unlike, a chain smoker where it's obvious what they're up to, right? So that's an addiction that you can fuel brilliantly. But then the next big major milestone in our industry started in March of 2020. As the world was shutting down physical contact, guess where, and again, I have to go back to an award ceremony I was at years ago, prior to going to Kobo, when I watched this book that was handcrafted win the Giller Prize, which would mean 70,000 sales the next day in Canada, which for Canada is outrageously way beyond anything you normally see because we're such a small country. And I remember going, Kobo was the only place that had the ebook because they paid to have the exclusive ebook edition for the small publisher that refused to even do mass market versions of the book. It would be like full week, full production. They could do 700 copies in a week if they went full tilt, right? And I watched them win, and my bookstore didn't even have a copy of the book because they couldn't keep up with the production. And all of a sudden, the only place that could sell it was Kobo. And so that sort of tilted my mentality to, oh my God, ebooks, you can have it now. And the same thing happened with COVID. Oh, you can't go to a bookstore. You can't go to a library. Oh, if I touch something physically that someone else licked or whatever as Dave would probably have.
Dave's world, yeah.
What people do to books when they touch them, when they fondle them. But I could pick up my Libby app on my iPhone and instantly get an audiobook or an ebook directly from my local public library, or go on my Kobo or on my Kindle or my Nook or whatever and download a book immediately. Suddenly people who were voracious, print book aficionados had no choice. They almost had no choice. If they wanted to read voraciously, they had to discover e-reading. So I know through Overdrive, in the last 2 weeks of March alone, 130% increase in ebook sales for indie author titles going from Draft2Digital to Overdrive. And Overdrive reported that 150 libraries in that first month adopted the cost per checkout model, which is that a different sort of model than the one copy, one user, if you're familiar with the 2 licenses. So we're still at like a second major tipping point that's not done tipping in terms of ebook growth. So if you think the market is tapped out, the reality is, despite the successes that you guys have had, and even having Italian language versions of your novels published, and all the different things that you've had done. I remember discovering one of your books on the shelves in Milan when I was in Italy a few years ago, right? Like that was an exciting moment for me to find one of your books there. But we're still at the phase where you may have hit so many tens of thousands of readers already, but there's still millions of readers to discover you, and they're not all on Amazon.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sense of optimism, because that's how I feel. I feel like there's like, oh my God, we're not even at 1/1000th of 1% of what we could tap.
Exactly. It's not tapped out.
Yeah, and it's funny because Dave is the anti-voice on that, because we'll get a book bub for like Yesterday's Gone, and he'll be like, everyone's already read it anyway. Like that, there's no excitement from him that we can get this. It's like every reader who's possibly read that, since it's already a few years old.
But nobody's heard of Mark Dawson. We know him because he's a 7-figure author. But you know what? Millions and billions of people have never heard of him. Diane Capri, right, who writes the Lee Child authorized Jack Reacher, Hunt for Jack Reacher. I loved Flying because I would see someone reading a Lee Child book and go, oh, you're reading the new Lee Child? I was like, yeah, man, I'm almost done, and it's going to be a year before I can read another Reacher novel. I was like, well, let me tell you about Diane Capri, because you got 12 more books you're going to love. Because Diane Capri, reading her books, got me into Lee Child. It's almost like I heard about Lee Child because of Diane Capri. But the reality is, and I told her this a couple years ago, Diane, I mean, sorry to say this, I know you're doing really well and making really good money off your books, but nobody's heard of you. You still have millions of fans to reach. So
well, I think we'll see all the scale with, you know, there's such a bottomless need for content on streamers now, and they're going to be pulling from pre-established IP where before that's come from traditional, and it's just not in this next wave.
Oh,
so
and yeah, and they've went, oh, well, we can't launch the book now because the bookstores are closed. Are you kidding me? You can't launch a book?
Right.
Indie authors are just like rubbing their hands together.
We're like,
because the way that the Kindle and digital publishing democratized the slush pile, got rid of the gatekeepers in New York. That was one massive movement. This next movement is indie authors are suddenly in exactly the same spot as the average publisher, where now the average, well, here's the thing to potentially be scared about, because I am an optimist, but well, now publishers have no choice because their business models seem to be, let's overprice ebooks and drive people back to dead trees. We want to sell dead trees. Well, dead trees are harder to sell, although I did see Jane Freeman share a report that there are print sales are up in different methodologies lately. But now they have no choice. So now they're actually going to be more aggressive, just like they have been in the UK, like with actually more reasonable ebook pricing. So you're not going to be able to differentiate on price, saying, oh, my book is cheaper, therefore you can buy 5 of my books for 1 book from Random House. Now, I think quality is going to be even more important, right? Targeting to your niche audience so they know, oh my God, this is a Sterling and Stone book. I know exactly what I'm getting from it. Like, that's the kind of thing that, although nobody ever says that. Nobody says, I'm only going to buy a HarperCollins book. No, they buy by the author. So this is going to be, a Sean and Johnny book. Or whatever. That's the brand that they like.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm actually really interested in that going forward, and I think that is where the market is going, where Sterling and Stone can build that kind of name because it's a stable of authors, and you're like, if we're really good at building that reader experience and taking a reader from one storyteller to another storyteller, then they understand that we have a family of storytellers and that name does mean something. Right. So you do see that label, and it doesn't exist in indie publishing right now, but it will. So let's talk about that, because that's part of the maturation of the industry. If we look at, 10 years ago, it was very much just solos. Like, that's all you saw. Right. You saw solo authors out there. And, I think we were well ahead of the curve in the collaboration that we did.
Yes.
And now I'm thinking that's more and more and more a trend. And it seems like not only is that going to continue to be an ever-growing trend, I think people will actually get professional about it and set up little studios. So how are people using Draft2Digital differently? How does a solo author use it versus someone like us?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sean. So it's kind of funny. I'm going to tell you a story about 2 guys, Churf and Knopfler, who were 2 friends in New York who wanted to one day just publish some of the books that they wanted to read. And they were going to do this on the side at random. It became Random House, right? I'm going to tell you a story about Lincoln, Simon and Schuster, which were 2 guys who took a mortgage out on their house to decide to publish some niche publishing books because Lincoln's aunt wanted to do crossword puzzles, and she could only do them on Sundays with the New York Times. And she said, oh my God, if only there was a book of nothing but crossword puzzles. It had never existed until Simon and Schuster pooled their money together to do this niche.
There is no Sterling or Stone, right?
And, well, that's what I'm saying. But Sterling and Stone is an iteration of multiple layers of trials that you guys did as the 3 of you and more people that you've brought together have come together as a small publishing company.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be talking about Sterling and Stone in those same, in 50 years, there'll be some really good looking bald guy in a gray jacket talking about did you know that the origin of Sterling and Stone comes from?
Well, he still looked like a secret
this
hitman.
Episode of this podcast, right? So back when it was the self-publishing podcast, right? Like, so all these iterations, which is exactly what publishers have gone through. And so when I think about that, when I think about the big publishers of today were very similar in their heart, passion, and spirit to what you guys have forged and built in terms of collaboration. I've always said that the future of publishing is going to involve more collaboration than ever before. And you guys have always been at the pioneering phase of that. but you've also been at the phase of bringing in other people and other experts and working together as a collaborative team, right? Focusing on, you're good at this, you're good at this, let's do this, we can be better together, right? That's one of the mandates that you guys have come up with, and the way you collaborate on writing, but the way you collaborate on publishing. And so Draft2Digital's role in this is one of the things I've been championing, and it is being built, is we launched, prior to me joining the company, Universes, D2D Universes, which was a replacement for Kindle Worlds, because Kindle Worlds happened, all these people built these really great businesses off it, and then they threw it in the tank.
Wait, are you saying Amazon didn't have follow through?
No, they didn't. But D2D announced D2D Universes to replace Kindle Worlds, and for the last 3 years, authors have been making really good money on that because they're able to write in the Kindle Worlds environment, publishing wide, and so the same technology that built that, when I saw it, I got into D2D and went, we need payment splitting, because I have an anthology I want to publish where I want to give an advance to the authors, but I also want to do payment splitting for 13 contributors. And the benefit, and I learned this from my friend Kevin J. Anderson. Kevin and Rebecca run Wordfire Press, and again, it's based on hundreds of titles that they have the rights back to, but also, like you guys, publishing other people as well, and different projects. And Kevin's biggest pain point for the longest time was, I'm spending hundreds of dollars on an accountant to pull spreadsheets from Kobo and Kindle and Draft2Digital and Smashwords and Apple and all these different places, put them in a spreadsheet to go, oh, here's your royalty check of $2.50 after spending $600 to pay you $3, right? So Draft2Digital's payment splitting option will take care of that for you. Here's the other challenge from me as a Canadian. When I work with an American company, I have to fill out a form that prevents the 30% withholding tax. So for D2D, for Kindle, right? If I don't fill that out, for Smashwords, if I don't fill that out, there's 30% withholding. I'm taking money from a US company to put into my company's name, and then I'm going to have to go, and let's say I'm going to pay the three of you for your efforts in publishing. The taxes are just ridiculous. I would rather have my, be able to track it through D2D and say, okay, you're going to get this percent, you're going to get this percent, I'm going to get this percent, and they're going to pay you directly. And they're going to send you the tax form as the American company. So that's, I'm really excited about that. That's probably going to be, I know I'm talking about it prematurely, but it is being worked on. And unless something really stupid happens, knock on wood, nothing stupid's happened this year. It should be live by the fall as well. Because I've even put up a book for pre-order that I'm doing payment splitting on, and I'm publishing even though I do recommend going direct to Kindle and direct to Kobo, because I think there's some benefits for the direct experience. I'm publishing this one only from D2D, because that way I can pay my contributors directly, and for print and ebook, and I don't have to worry about anything.
Well, it sounds like you're just creating an experience that's a lot more malleable. It's, hey, here's who I am as a creator or a team of creators, and here's the different tools. So let's talk.
They also did 7-minute abs with that shit. You see that too? Like, forget about worlds, we're universe.
I do like that.
What about the issue? So I love the optimism. I love the idea that one of the reasons to go wide is because there's a ton of people who haven't heard of you before. And one of the examples that I know you gave when you were with Kobo was that Amazon isn't necessarily the big dog in Canada, for instance, that they are in the US, and that's true especially in other, I don't know that this is true for sure, but I know Neve was saying earlier that there's no Amazon for Ireland. So I'm sort of thinking maybe that's the sort of thing. But
I was there.
But what about the economics of it? Because day to day, it does still seem like an unfortunate truth that the people who are doing well in KU, whether it's in the short term or not, are on average, I would say, outpacing a lot of the people who are deciding to go wide. And I would much rather go wide, but that is a hard choice. So what are your current thoughts on that?
It is a hard choice, and there is no quick and easy fix. It's a long-term strategy. I remember being on stage in Colorado Springs at one of Kevin and Rebecca's Superstars writing seminars, and an author in the audience calling out to me is like, I went to Kobo a year ago and I still haven't made $5 or whatever. And it was like, just called me out on stage and mocked me and stuff. And then
I really liking Mark's impressions. That's 3.
No, but her voice is way sweeter than that. But that's what it sounded like to me. It actually sounded like, Charlie Brown thing. But no, I talked with her afterwards and was like, you know, dude, yeah, I told you it's going to take at least 9 months minimum before you see anything. It's not an easy thing. It's hard. The next year she came back and was like, oh my God. And this is a case where I think if I'm not mistaken, Amazon's now less than 45% of her income because she's seen such growth on Kobo and on Apple and on Nook and on Google Play. And so it took a long, long time to get to that point. The exception that proves the rule, as there always is one, is you guys know T.S. Paul, science fiction writer. I saw him at Novelist Inc. when I was still at Kobo, and he was talking about, oh, I'm gonna put one of my series into Kobo. And okay, dude, I know you're making really, really good money. Just be aware, it's gonna take you a long time before you get back to where you were making the same money. You're gonna lose money on Amazon, and you're not gonna make money on Kobo or the other places right away. Then I left Kobo shortly after, because it was you know, in November that I left, and Nink was in September. He reached out to me, I think in January, and he goes, oh my God, I made this much on Kobo. And I was like, no, you didn't, you liar. There's no way on earth anyone could make that much money on Kobo that quickly. And because I didn't have access to Kobo anyway, because normally I would just go in.
But that dude is such an outlier too. Like the way.
He was able to do it. So, I mean, mostly it takes forever. I don't know what crazy stuff his readers are into, but they got a hold of his stuff and went to town on it. So I think the lesson to me there isn't that, oh, Kobo is awesome and it's going to keep growing. No, yeah, I love Kobo because, you know, I have a lot of personal relationships with people there, and I think it's a great company. It's where I read my ebooks. But I think different platforms, different readers, different titles, there's going to be different success stories. I was just talking to Brian Rathbone, who was on the Wide for the Win group on Facebook, and he was posting what he did on Google Play. And again, it's not all that different than the long-term strategies that everyone talks about. But he spent some time and he focused on Google Play. Now Google Play is his major platform that competes with what he makes on Amazon. So for different authors, it's going to be different platforms. For me in audio, I could maybe I've made $50 off of Audible sales on all my audiobook titles. I've made the majority of my audiobook sales, because it's all short stuff, and we know that, you know, it has to be 18 hours for it to be worthwhile to sell on Audible. I've made most of my money off the cost per checkout through the library models. I remember looking at my Find Away Voices report going, who are high books? I've never heard of them. I hadn't heard of Biblioteca. I hadn't heard of half of these places. I'm like, I'm making money off of Hoopla and all these other places.
Well, let's talk about that actually,
yeah.
Because I think that a lot of people, when they look at Draft2Digital, or not even Draft2Digital, but when they think KU versus Wide, like that is the argument, KU versus Wide, and they think of Amazon versus the paltry dollars I'm going to get at Barnes and Noble. But that's not really the argument, because there are things like libraries, and there are that are totally different. So
direct sales, like there's all kinds of opportunities that you limit yourself with. What
are the areas that people are just straight up leaving money on the table because they're kind of narrowly looking at what it is when it's KU versus Y?
So libraries is huge. Libraries is far bigger and is going to grow faster and stronger than probably the retailers that we're all championing. Yeah, nobody wants to see Barnes & Noble or Nook die, right? We want to see them be healthy. We want to have an ecosystem that's competitive, because being competitive, I mean, and I love that Amazon's strong because it encourages everyone else to become better, right? When you're trying to keep up, and it's when you get lazy and you're leading and there's no chance of anyone else, that is bad for the entire industry. So I don't hate on Amazon or any of those things. As a matter of fact, I had a really great experience with their customer service related to, you know, I was complaining about the way they handle series title information, like the metadata. And I was like, you know, you really got to get with the program, dude. And it was a really good positive. It wasn't like a fight, but it was a really good positive. So I want Amazon to be successful. I just want the other ones to be successful. And I think libraries is a great market. But I mean, there's direct sales opportunities. Look at the stuff that Damon's doing with BookFunnel that can really allow, without a lot of high technology. I don't know how you guys are doing direct sales, but you know, with BookFunnel, it's so easy. And they're getting into the audiobook market too. So my goal, even though I'm a Draft2Digital representative, my goal is to help authors discover all of the different ways and really diversifying their income in as many ways as possible. Because if one of them goes or two of them go, you still have some legs to stand on. You're still not going, oh no, what do I do now? And that's, and that sounds like fear mongering. But what it really is I call it control mongering. I really want you to be in control of your IP, not to hand it over to the whims of some other company. Like that's my, and again, it does sound like fear mongering, I guess.
Well, it's legit fear mongering though, Mark,
yeah.
because without going into details, we have had some near misses recently that just make you go, oh, if they decide there's a problem, we're fucked.
Yeah.
Nothing we can do about it. So, you know, when you're not diversified like that.
And yeah, that's important. Oh, sorry.
You know, I was just going to say one of the challenges that I think there is in the KU versus wide debate as well is the amount of education that there is for authors on how to market on Amazon. Like you have an enormous amount of training and courses and things. So if I'm someone and I want to go wide and I'm like, you know what, I want to at least take maybe half my catalog will be wide and half will be on KU. What would you suggest to someone who wants to start out? I mean, I'm sure they don't just stick them up on Kobo and wait, you know, so what would you recommend someone do to
pray
educate
actually is what you need to do.
Wide?
No, that's a great question. It's why I wrote Killing It on Kobo, because I was like, oh, look, another 100 books were published on how to make money on Kindle this month. Oh, there's nothing about anyone else. Now, this is why this is now up for pre-order, Wide for the Win by Mark Leslie Lefevre. No, that actually is coming out in January. But I'm joking when I say that, but there is a group on Facebook called Wide for the Win. Erin Wright founded the group. She is the mother of the group. She was going to publish a book called that. She's recently, brave Erin, handed the reins over to me to take over the book project. But I think what I've been learning from Wide for the Win, and I'm learning every single day, is there are authors who are sharing. I was like, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to do this on Nook. And then you have 20 other authors who've already solved that problem, or 20 other authors who've had success. And what I find really, really refreshing is in a group like that, you see a diverse group. It's like, you know, Brian's killing it on Google, and someone else is doing well on Apple, and someone else is doing well on Nook. Someone else is like, I made $100,000 off of Kickstarter for my publishing projects, in addition to what I was making off of regular sales. Kickstarter, I mean, is the majority of his income for writing now, but he's able to live off of it. So there's so many amazing things that I'm learning every day from what different people are doing, that I think a group like that now, and I love Michael Anderle and Craig Martell, and they've done so much. They've been so generous to so many people. I mean, I think I met Michael at Smarter Artist Summit for the first time. I'm pretty sure.
They're both going to be on this State of the Industry series.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the first time I met Michael, because I remember seeing that he was buying Kindles and giving them away to veterans, and I was like, oh my God, I got to get to know this guy. He's such a sweetheart, and
he's the nicest guy.
He really is. And well, I don't know that I want to share that, but he's been very nice with us.
He's a very, very generous, and he has helped so many writers become full-time rich writers just with his James Patterson the shit out of his career. The way he's done that, the way he's collaborated with people, that's been very, very good. However, and Michael knows that I publicly share this, is the majority of his learnings are mostly about Kindle and Amazon. And I know they've expanded LMPD or LMNOP publishing.
LMBPN.
It's a mouthful.
I know. I just call it LMNOP publishing. I know him and Judith have done a really, really good job at doing some wide releases and experimenting with hybrid rights and stuff like that, which I think is the future. But I think he, the learnings on the 20 books group, for example, is pretty much 99% Amazon all the time. And that's fine. It's great. It's wonderful. And they help people all the time. But I'm more interested in going, okay, another thing about Kindle. Let's figure out some of the other platforms. Let's give them, and it's not, let's give them some airtime, but let's figure out strategies that can help us sell on those platforms, because the readers deserve the opportunity to read your books.
Yeah, not to mention there's the everyone talks about Amazon in the good old days. Oh, I was back there in the Wild West, Amazon. And that's what it is still on the other platforms, because there's so many things that haven't been discovered and marketers haven't come in and ruined it and made it all bad. But what would be the main way that someone would at least want to approach marketing on Wide? Because from what my impression, and I have not learned a lot about Wide marketing, but my impression is that you focus on relationships and merchandising, is building relationships.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Because Nook, Apple, and Kobo, and Google to some extent, they're actually coming out a little bit more about that lately, or more about merchandising and algorithms. Now, what I would say is focus on one market. Right? It's kind of like social media. You can't do it all. You can't be bouncing around. Focus on one that you think potentially, based on your demographics, of what you understand of the demographics and the readerships and stuff like that. Like, trying to sell erotica on Apple. No, don't. Go sell your erotica on Smashwords, right? They have a storefront. If you want to sell erotica outside of Amazon, I would strongly recommend Smashwords, right? I know it still sells on Kobo, and Nook, I believe, but Apple ain't gonna sell your erotica, neither is Overdrive. So you have to understand where to focus your attention. Pick that, focus it, look at the people who are successful there, learn from them. One of the things I love about our communities, absolutely adore about our community, is you can reach out to an author who will have time for you. Michael Anderle has time for you. Craig Martell has time for you. Mark Dawson, like all of these, Joanna Penn, all of these amazing people, you guys as well, right? Who've done all these things, have time to share and help other people. Because I think we all understand that it's okay to help one another, because technically we're not competing with each other so much as we're competing with binge watching on Netflix or any of those other streams, right? We're competing with other activities.
Yeah, the more people who are reading, the better for everybody.
Yeah, because if they love your book and if they're a voracious reader, they're going to love your books, because I can't possibly write enough books to keep up, to release enough books to keep them satisfied. Therefore, if I can give them your stuff and we can help each other out. So I think
you want them to be using their time to read. So
yeah, exactly. So collaborations as well. And I'd say pick a market or two and scope it out and see what you can find about it. I think that's a good way to get started, because you're not going to be able to build it all at once. I've been on Google Play for 10 years now, and I think I've made more money in the last 3 months than I made in the previous 9 years.
What do you attribute that to, Mark? Because, obviously relationships, networking, merchandising, but you can't always count on that, obviously.
No,
it's merchandised to everybody. And so are there strategies or ad venues, either, sort of that you control or that you can purchase outward, that are working?
So I think BookBub ads. I'm sure you guys have read David Gogman's book on BookBub ads. When he was doing a presentation at NINC last year, I was watching Carlin Robertson. She was sitting in the back row, and I was watching her nod vigorously to everything he was saying. I'm like, oh God, I'm buying this book. But I think BookBub is one of the great ways to reach beyond. And so a lesser cost, written word media has been doing some pretty sexy things. Again, not as like written word media is the Kobo to BookBub's Amazon, maybe. Like, and again, I love Ricky and the team. They're amazing. But again, they're smaller, but I've never not had success using their platform. So I look for the platforms like BookBub and written word media and Book Doggy, and any of the platforms that aren't just Amazon focused. Like when I want to do a promo stacking, I think that's valuable. I kind of lost my train of thought on your original question. I kind of went any marketing opportunities, and I would say marketing and advertising and sort of internal housekeeping. So a lot of what Neve and Sean and our promotions team has done is actually clean up on our catalog. It's not stuff that's being done outside. So either sort of funnel strategies or things that you can purchase. Like how do I get my books sold if I have a catalog of books? How do you get more books sold? I think, and I know Dave Chesson just came out recently and said, don't do pre-orders because it will screw your Amazon sales. Yeah,
that's a great Dave Chesson too.
Dave Chesson's a brilliant. That's Dave after too many bourbon. No, Dave's a brilliant guy, and I love him, and he's done such amazing things. But then he posts this and it's true, it probably will screw up your Amazon world, but it's not going to screw up your other world, right? It's actually potentially going to help you on Apple. It's going to help you
also some of those things. It's not just about the data. So
Yeah.
if a pre-order, even if it ruins your also bots a little bit, or your numbers on pre-orders, or whatever it taints, you also have your diehard fans are able to get in early.
Oh my God, yeah.
People who review and they talk, and
Yeah.
they it's like the weight of that reader is heavier than another one who comes later and just happens upon it. So yeah, you may sacrifice something, on a spreadsheet cell, but on something that's not as measurable, which is why I think like all the AI is great. We talked to Joanna yesterday, and I don't think I made my point really great, because we were talking about the auto ads, and she was saying how great the AI is on the auto ads. And I'm like, well, if they could just get 98% of it, then that's great, because it allows you to have that other 2%. Where do you take that?
Mm-hmm.
And her perspective was, well, it's the AI is gonna take that all the way. And I'm like, well, I feel like there's some nuance sometimes where you just need a human in there. And that's a good example, because the AI is going to tell you one thing, that the data is going to say definitively that, but it's not necessarily the best answer.
No, and I know that Overdrive and Apple and Kobo specifically, because I've worked directly with a lot of people there, are looking for the traditional. I mean, I've been a bookseller since 1992. My favorite thing in the world was finding a book that nobody else had discovered yet, and being the one to hand sell that book, and to prop that book up, and to order in more copies, and to face it on my shelf, and to force it down everyone's throat that I thought would love this book. Like, I used to challenge my staff to do that. We would all have our own competitions internally. Like, well, this is my hand sell. What's your hand sell? And I would actually have competitions, because if it's a book you're passionate about, if it's a book you actually believe in, and it's the right customer, there's nothing better than that relationship. And I know that that's what drives the merchandisers at Apple and Kobo. And I'm pretty sure that would drive them at Nook too, because they're born from that same cloth. Like they're bred in that same, baked in the same oven of those book people. And I'm pretty sure now, Sarah is overseeing Google Play. She used to be at Nook, Sarah Dickman.
I don't know that I know Sarah. Have we met Sarah?
I don't.
Yeah.
She's been in the industry a long time. She used to be an agent. Chrissy, who used to work at Kobo Writing Life team, her and Chrissy used to work together. Like, they knew each other.
Chrissy's not at Kobo anymore. I really like Chrissy too.
Chrissy left Kobo, and Sarah's been at Google now for 9 months. And ironically, shortly after she joined, Google started, like, they showed up at 20 books to 50K, and they're, participated in the Career Author Summit, and they're starting to put out a lot more. I think they're going to really turn things around. And so, and this is I've been on Google for 10 years and, made chump change on Google, but my books are on Google. And it's like being at Kindle during the golden days, the gold rush days, the yesterday's gone days, where
once
you
Google
just put up a book
and
it would sell
there,
right? John Locke's book, right? Like that first, imagine being that pioneer who's discovered this beautiful land that's now, like, it's $1 million for a shitty shack that's on but you own that land because you've planted and you staked your claim there. So when people show up and are starting to buy real estate, you're laughing. And that's why trying to be wide, because you never know where that's going to be for what books.
That's sort of the thing, is like, it's real hard to look away from Amazon exclusivity right now, because that is what's hot right now. Like right now, today, that's where it seems like the action is.
You're funny when you say that. I'm going to argue with you. It's like, you're saying that's hot, and I was going, really? I thought it was hot a year ago.
Oh, well, I would love if it isn't hot right now.
But maybe it's hot for the stuff that you're selling, right?
Well, I don't know. It just seems to be, maybe I'd love to be wrong. I'd love it if Amazon exclusivity isn't the thing to do right now. And admittedly, I'm pulled out of a lot of that now. But look at the companies that we're talking about. Like, do you want to bet against Apple and Google? It's possible that they can be awesome and never get good in books. But at the same time, like, we're talking about potential, marketplaces that could, if they turn it on, if they really put focus there, could really blow up. And, just sort of, I don't know, big picture, like the more of us who go and say, I'm not even going to try wide, I'm only going to do Amazon exclusivity, we're making the problem worse. Like, I love Amazon. I don't want to shit talk Amazon, but the fact is, like, they kind of are building a monopoly over there. And if people don't go wide and people keep going there and it gets more and more, then it's only going to get worse. And
or better for the wide people who go, good luck to you. Well, it's I equate self-publishing to 10-year-old boys playing soccer. 10-year-old kids playing soccer, but boys tend to be worse at this. You get the one person who's got the ball, he's on a breakaway, and the entire pack is just chasing them back and forth across the field. Whoever has the ball.
Watch those games.
Most people are chasing that John Locke who sold the book for 99 cents, and the people are still chasing John Locke 15 years later, or whatever, 10 years later. People are still chasing that dream, as opposed to playing their position, playing their ball, and waiting for the right opportune moment to score in their own way, to take the ball themselves. I would rather play that other game than just be a miserable person following the pack and never being the one with the ball, because you're never going to be the ball if you're only following, if you're not building your own strategy that's unique to you, rather than saying, well, this is the only way to do it, I'm just going to stick with it.
There's a couple of big, I think, just misunderstandings or misconceptions where with the wide versus select.
And I'm parroting a bunch of them, apparently.
Well, no, it's not that you're off base on that. I think that people are so first off, and we talk a lot about this, we're still in the beginning, right? So thinking that Amazon's saturated or that it's too late, it's thinking that Amazon and Google, just as two examples, don't have huge plans, that they're just like, it's still the beginning, we're not ready yet, and we're not in a hurry. We're going to do it right.
Yeah, they're like the little ninja that stands in the back and waits while everyone tires each other out, and you're like, that dude's going to do something awesome.
Yeah, Amazon is doing things fast. That doesn't mean that Apple's not going to do them better, right? They've got, iBooks is on every single iOS device, and iOS devices have a lot of saturation. So that, to me, indicates there's a bigger plan at play in the future that they just haven't tapped into yet. And you see the trickles. But I think that's great. I think anybody who is like, it's too late on Amazon, great. Be the first on the next shore. Just like Mark is saying, be the person who's like, okay, look, if I figure it's going to take me 3 years to get traction, because that's just the way it is right now, the market is super saturated and I'm just going to have to be patient. Why not be patient wide? Why not be patient where you can get more visibility? If you have to do your time anyway, and everybody's complaining about how crowded it is over here and it's all pay to play, then why not try it over here instead?
It's why I started drinking craft beer. I didn't want anyone to accidentally take my beer because they were all drinking the same thing, right? Like, it's like, no, that one's mine. And then craft beer became popular, so damn it. No, but I think, and this is important, because there are authors for whom Kindle Unlimited and KDP Select is working dramatically well. The only advice I would give them is, please put your money away. Please don't go, ha ha, money, right? Like,
after setting aside money for taxes, which is another thing.
What's that? After
setting aside money for taxes, which is another thing a lot of indies forget to do.
And craft beer and all the important things in life. After you do that, I put some money aside, because you never know that, and then that removes the fear, right? So when it happens that it's not working anymore, you're not in a panic, and maybe you've got some feelers out in wide. Maybe you've published some of your books wide, so at least you've planted some stakes in some of the other territories. You've slowly built up readership in the other territories, but you also have a base of money to rely on. That's the one thing I would encourage them, authors who are exclusive to Amazon, to do. Don't panic. Any decisions you make in a panic are not good. You really have to think about what's best for you as a creative person, as a writer, as somebody who wants to tell stories. And I know you guys are passionate about this. You know that your role as storyteller right now, your role as storyteller happens to be prose in ebooks, where you make the majority of your money. But and I know you guys know this, and you've done this for years, you're a storyteller no matter what happens to the industry. If it's for games, it's for, tabletop games or video games or any of the other things. And I know you guys have a finger on the pulse of that stuff. So that's the thing to focus on, not, like what you are doing and how you are reaching readers and entertaining people and allowing them to escape, as opposed to one tactic, which is exclusive or not.
I would also say not to confuse saturation with Amazon doesn't strike me as saturated so much as a mess. So it's not that they have so many books that's the reason, or so many great books that's the reason you can't get noticed. It's because it's kind of a dumpster fire. Like if you don't know a specific book that you want to read, trying to randomly stumble across a great read that actually is interesting to you is hard.
Yeah.
I never do it. I always work with recommendations for that reason.
And recommendations are still the number one source of readers discovering books. There should be a site called Great Reads or something. If only it wasn't owned by Amazon.
Right. You should, rather than you guys should start that. Great Reads, like you did with the worlds versus universes. Do you want good reads or do you want great reads?
It is compelling. Okay, so in closing, what is, I've got two questions here. What does the next few years look like for Draft2Digital? But then what does the next few years, just from Mark's head, look like for the industry as a whole?
Ironically, I have to merge the two of them because I've long said
That's
the future of
man.
publishing is collaborative. That I think Draft2Digital is going to continue to expand upon two major themes. And one of them is allowing people to collaborate in ways that work for their business. In ways, again, the whole purpose behind Draft2Digital is this, like even with the D2D print, which is in beta release right now. Oh, you don't have a full cover wrap? You don't have to pay a designer. You've got your front cover. We'll make one for you, right? We'll give you templates to make it. That is
awesome.
You want an ebook for free to publish in print or ebook? It's yours. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that for you. The whole idea is we want to make it easier for you to write another book, because the way we make money is only when you sell books, right? So anything that can help save writers time, energy, and resources about the business or craft of writing, we want to help. So we want to build more tools to that end. And that's why the collaboration, that's why the payment splitting is such a critical thing. But then the other thing that we have been focusing on, and because I know this, because I used to have sales reps try to sell me books when I was a book buyer, is when I got to D2D, I started doing sales pitches to Kobo and to Apple and to Overdrive. Those are the three main accounts that actually listen to us. Finding like, oh, Johnny and Sean have this book coming out in 4 months. I'm going to start hitting Apple and Kobo with them now. I'm going to start sending them little printed catalogs with their books printed on them. Like those are the things that we just hired a full-time person to take over that, because Dan and I were trying to do it while we were doing our jobs and it was too much work. So now that Kara's doing it, it's amazing. So next phase is how do we up that game to help authors get as many merchandising opportunities as possible? Because we know, just like in old traditional publishing, you send out 50 submissions, you get one acceptance. We know with BookBub, you send out, whatever, for every 50 submissions, you get one acceptance. We want to help you get more of those out there so you can get more acceptances. So I think those are the two things that we're going to focus on. And again, I honestly think collaboration. How can writers work with each other, with their readers, right? As we're doing more and more and interacting more with them to understand what they want and what they need, and when we're providing the things that they want. I think they're huge. And as you guys know, you talked to Joanna about this. I mean, I don't want someone to take my voice as an AI. I want to license it myself. I want to be part of the disruption. Yeah, do you want me to narrate your audiobook because you like my funky Canadian accent? You like what that's all about? You can have my voice, but I'm going to get a small cut of that. But it'll cost you far less than hiring me to do the audiobook myself, or to hire a professional narrator. So I think there are opportunities in creativity and storytelling. You guys have heard of VoiceMap, where we can do virtual tours. I've done a virtual ghost tour. So I sold the rights to a publisher, but I still had all the research. So I just did a voice tour. And now COVID, because you can't go on ghost walks. Now you can buy my ghost walk and go on a ghost walk by yourself, where I'm going to lead you through GPS enabled ghost walk of downtown Hamilton. So now I'm making money off of a book I sold in 2012 in a different IP because I still have some of those rights. So I think recognizing IP and the strength of your IP and how much power you have as a creator and licensing them as individually as possible, I think is going to be a huge opportunity we haven't even begun to tap.
All right. So, Mark, you mentioned Wide for the Win. I actually didn't know about that. That's out in January, right? So what's the best way? Because, I mean, I want to read Wide for the Win.
Books2read.com/wide for the win.
There you go. So that's
a free Draft2Digital tool.
That's where you get, and books2read.com/wide for the win.
Yeah.
And that's the pre-order, right? So you're literally pre-ordering it. So you're all good.
Yeah. The only two places it's not going to be listed on for a long time are Amazon and Google.
All right. And Mark's podcast, Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing, is at starkreflections.ca. And Mark's website is markleslie.ca. And dude, like, your consulting is too affordable. Like, I think people should hire you before you get sensible and raise your prices, because, dude, seriously. So yeah, check Mark out. Thank you as always for being on. This was super fun. Can't wait to catch up more. And just thank you for being you, dude, because a lot of people will tell you in this industry what you want to hear. And I would say you're one of the few. Interestingly, Dan Wood is another one like you, another very, very good person in this industry.
Far more handsome than me and more hair too.
But he's gotten more hair as I've known him too. Like, it just kind of got bigger and longer and everything. Whereas yours is contracted. I think he might be taking your hair.
Well, not on all places on my body.
Wow. Okay. That's a good note to end on. So thank you, everybody, for listening to this Story Studio podcast. We will see you next time, as always. And yeah, happy writing.
Thanks so much, and adios.
Bye-bye.